Hello, everyone. It's Dan King here from Fireside Strategic. Welcome to our videocast, Humanity Builds Better Businesses. We're going to celebrate leaders that do transformational work within organizations, help their clients grow and lead teams with humanity. Today, I'm super happy to chat with Colin Cox, the founder of Cox Consulting. Colin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dan. It's great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. So, would love to start out with just a little bit about what you do and who you are.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm an executive coach and consultant. I went out on my own to do this in May of 2019, so about 18 months ago from this recording. Surviving a pandemic and really my first 18 months on my own was challenging but very rewarding. But before that, 26 years in technology and video game organizations. So, going way back, in 1993, as a 15-year-old kid, I dropped out of high school and had the good fortune of working at EA Sports Electronic Arts from that age. So that's kind of where it all began.
Hmm. What seeds were planted that from those experiences that brought you to coaching?
I think one of them was when I was 17, I became a team lead. And with another young guy and I, we were leading this team doing compatibility testing within this gaming company, Electronic Arts. We were leading this team of 10 people. So I got thrust into leadership at a fairly young age, made lots of horrible mistakes, obviously, learning as we go. But my passion has been leadership and people for as long as I can remember. It hasn't been technology and video games, even though that's where I spent 26 years.
Hmm. What interests you most about people and leadership?
What interests me most about people in leadership? That's a great question, Dan. The leaders that I'm most interested in, the leaders I believe are the most effective, are leaders that are not self absorbed, that aren't really focused on themselves, right? Leaders that have a bigger vision about an impact they want to make and that they lead other people towards that goal. So
Hmm.
that's something really interesting about leadership to me.
Hmm. Hmm. That point about not being self-absorbed is so interesting. It's easy to say that. How do we become less self-absorbed? How can you help other leaders become less self-absorbed?
Yeah, good question, Dan. When I think about helping leaders become less self-absorbed, I don't know. I think it's quite rare that I see leaders that are, to be completely honest. I don't know that it's a sustainable way to lead.
Hmm.
I think in a short period of time you could be a leader that's just focused on yourself and acting in your own self-interest. And I think an argument could be made that, well, every action all of us do really is ultimately in our self-interest. But I think we all know when we see somebody that's acting in their own self-interest that doesn't serve the group or the
Hmm.
mission, right? And that's what you might think, oh, that person's political. They're doing this thing because they want their promotion, not because this is the best thing for the organization. And I don't think that's sustainable leadership. I don't think that lasts.
Yeah. People catch on to it, right? If over time you continually behave in a way that's purely self-serving and narrow, people are going to know that, and you're going to lose that ability to have that trust that's so essential for good culture building.
Yeah. Yeah, trust is foundational. That's been my experience, and there's a lot written about that. Patrick Lencioni's Five Dysfunctions of a Team, all based on trust. So,
Mm,
a lot of work I'll do with CEOs and executive teams is understanding where trust is and then figuring out how do we build up from that.
yeah. So that's a great segue to learn a little bit more about your practice and who your clients are. So we'd love to hear about those two things.
Yeah, my clients are not just technology and video games. And one thing I did, I lived in Europe for 7 years. So grew up in Vancouver. I spent
Mm,
7 years at Electronic Arts, starting when I was 15 years old. I left there in October 2000 to go to a startup. And the height of the dot com bubble, pretty terrible timing to leave the safety of a place like Electronic Arts. And that startup stopped paying us after a few months. So
Mm,
I took a year off and then eventually started working for a printer software company, which moved me to Oxford, England.
mm.
So I moved over there, spent 7 years in England. And now I've lost my train of thought. Where was I going with this? Dan, what was the
We
question
were
there?
talking about your practice and who your clients are.
Right. So I've got this long career in technology and video games. When I moved home from Europe in 2013, I found out about an executive peer group called McKay CEO Forums. So similar to
Mm,
YPO, EO, those types of organizations. And that really exposed me to leadership outside of just the tech world. And I found that so fascinating. So that's allowed me to build a network and some understanding about leadership in the context outside of just tech. So
yeah.
now when I do, when I coach CEOs or executives, when I do consulting projects, and that might be leadership development programs, it might be doing a workshop on productivity. I do a lot of strategy workshops, how to create a strategy, how to set up an execution rhythm. And what I found is a lot of the same principles of leadership, they just apply across all these different industries.
Mm,
So, I'll work with people in commercial real estate, building maintenance, power distribution, all over the place. And I find that really
mm.
ticks my interest box as a learner.
Yeah. I love that. There's so much variety in the work,
Yeah,
and you can find insights in one industry and apply them in another all the time, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's what's interesting. I'm a high school dropout. When I went and lived in Oxford, I did an MBA. Not at
Mm,
Oxford University, but living in Oxford, I found the Open University
yeah.
and did their quadruple accredited MBA program there. And I've just consumed leadership through a fire hose for so long. And what I found is my default way of looking at the world is that I just sort of assume by default that everybody has been exposed to the same things. And I almost feel like if I'm going to share this principle about leadership or strategy, you all probably know that, right? Like, who am I to tell you? But what I've actually found is that more people just really are experts in their industry,
Yeah.
and they haven't sort of consumed the same amount of knowledge around leadership and strategy. So I find that, yeah, there's so much available to help people with.
If you don't mind me saying, I think one of the things I suspect you bring to your practice is a really wonderful humility. And just to think that, hmm, you know, as someone who didn't go to high school, you're coaching CEOs, you're coaching people who, in many cases, have this very professional sort of big ticket background, if you like. You're going to know some things that can help them. You bring a humility to the table and that you want to learn from them, but you also bring a confidence, right? That,
Mhm.
hey, your background is different. That doesn't mean that you don't have a ton of value to bring to the table.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely believe that to be true. And I think some of that is natural. Like, it's not something I've worked on. I think it's just been there.
Mm,
And then the learned behavior there, I think, is around coaching. So I've done
mm,
some training around coaching. And, the way I'm sure you feel the same, Dan, but coaching and mentoring are different skills. And if I'm coaching a CEO, I can do mentoring, which is CEO, I've been there, done that. Here's some ideas. Here's what happened. Here's my subject matter expertise on the topic. But with coaching, of course, you don't need that subject matter expertise. What you need is to be present and curiosity and listening skills and being able to ask the right questions to help a CEO find the answers they already have. And some of the most powerful coaching sessions I have are where I talk for 5% of the time and the CEO is figuring it all out. And they say, Colin, that was just incredible. And I feel like you did all the work. It wasn't me. So I think that's part of where I get some
yeah,
confidence is I don't need to have all the answers
yeah,
and I can
yeah,
still help people.
yeah, yeah. I love that, and I think that's bang on. And until people have coaching is this beautiful thing that often people don't understand unless they experience it. It's very hard to explain. It's hard to put down on paper and have someone understand. They need to experience. a magical version of it. And then suddenly it clicks, right?
Yeah, I did this 2 days ago, Dan. I did a full day leadership development workshop for a group of 20 leaders, yeah, over Zoom.
Hmm.
And part of the content was the skill of coaching and leadership. We were talking about having really effective virtual one to ones. And so I could have just, shared coaching is about presence, curiosity, listening. Here's some powerful questions. But I designed an exercise and put them in pairs to actually just try it out. Try out, spend 7 minutes coaching someone else in this program, and then be coached for 7 minutes. And we came
Mm,
back, and what came back, I asked, how was that experience being coached, being the coachee? And people said, being the coachee, I felt so supported.
mm,
And it felt so good to have space to think and actually dig a few layers deeper into my own issues.
yeah,
And it was incredible. And I think that experience is so much powerful for them having just had that 7 minutes of experience
yeah.
to either coach or be coached.
Such an important lesson underlying what you're saying is that not only can it be magical, it can be magical very quickly.
Yeah.
So it's sort of counterintuitive that you can create a calmer space where something that we might want to think about and reflect on that we wouldn't ordinarily have the chance to talk about comes out. There's slowness in that, but it can also happen very quickly. Even just investing 5 or 7 minutes in the middle of a workday can sometimes get to a result like that. And
Yeah.
that unique combination of slowness and speed is really magical.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that our world today, we live in the attention economy and things happen so fast. And what I observe is almost everybody I meet has way more on their list than they have capacity for and actually leads
Mm,
to stress. But I think a result of that is that we often look for the quick, easy solutions. And when you have that space to dig a little bit deeper, you get under the surface, you go a few onion layers deeper, and then actually get to the root of solving something versus just attacking it at the surface.
that's right. And perhaps like with an onion, once you peel and get to the root, maybe you cry a little bit, but it could be a very cathartic cry. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. And
uh,
then, and then that touches on leadership vulnerability,
yes.
and being willing to face the hard truths and, swallow your pride, stop worrying about your ego, all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
which is hard. It's difficult.
Yep. Super hard. So in doing this coaching work with leaders, I'm curious if a coaching story or a leadership development story pops to mind where you can think about a beautiful shift in one or maybe a few of your clients that really comes to mind without, of course, getting into super specific details. Curious if there's a shift or two that we could tell a story about that would be a really good symbol of your work.
Yeah, I'll share one comes to mind, and I'll have to protect confidentiality, of course, like you
Yeah.
said. But someone, a CEO, who has had the luxury right now of not having fires and crises to put out.
Mm.
And so they've had discretionary time to consider, where do I apply my talents, my powers, my thinking. And we've been able to use that gift of that time to think ahead, right? Not a month, not 3 months, but think ahead 5 years and start to see, okay, here's something this is the client, the CEO. Here's something that's on my mind that actually I'm a little concerned about. And it's been in the back of my mind for years. We were able to dedicate time to thinking through that. And by we, I mean him. I didn't do any thinking. I was present. I listened. I was curious. I asked questions. And he was able to get clarity on the issue. He was able to get clarity on what needed to happen. He
Mm.
took action. And the end result is, Colin, that all of that tension, apprehension, worry, anxiety I had over that thing is now gone. We've mitigated it. And that's why I coach, is to have impact on people.
Yeah. Yeah. Had that not happened, the low grade stress might have remained for a long time, and there might have been, it sounds like, a less clear vision of the future. there wouldn't have been that chance to think about 5 years from now, which we usually don't in our distraction lives.
That's right. And I think worst case scenario is that that issue is not mitigated. And when it's there, it now blows up into a full blown crisis where
Mm,
even the organization's existence is at risk. Like that's the worst case. So having that space to be able to think long term, again, I think, a lot of publicly traded organizations are focused on quarterly profits and short term thinking. And I
yes,
think Jeff
yes.
Bezos is famous for I don't care about that, right?
Hmm.
And I think anytime we can create some space for that, I mean, we have to focus on the fires, but being able to detach, look ahead, do a little bit of thinking there, I think it's so valuable to be able to do that.
Could not agree with you more. I think that's brilliant. Absolutely. Um, Curious about if you're inspiring clients to do this reflective work, to do the work of both thinking long term and handling stress and risks that might not come up if there wasn't reflection. I'm curious about some of your own work. What do you do? What kind of work do you do in order to coach well? How do you sharpen your axe?
Yeah, I think part of what I have to self manage, Dan, is I love learning. And so, left unchecked, I might spend all of my time learning and actually doing nothing. Right. But the things I do to sharpen my axe, I will absolutely keep seeking out content and people where I can learn from and in a reciprocal
Mm,
fashion as well. So
mm,
peer groups has been one of those things. When I was a COO, I was in McKay CEO Forums, a group. So that tremendously added to my growth. I now chair three of those groups. So about
mm.
40 CEOs across all kinds of industries that I get to meet with all the time. And I feel very grateful to have the opportunity to learn from them. I will read constantly. I will read business books, leadership books. I will read uh, fiction just to keep learning. And I love to look for connections. Sometimes I'll read a novel and
Mm.
something in there will spark a connection. I'll give you an example. Over the Christmas break, my kids and I watched Pixar's new movie Soul. And there's some fantastic, fantastic life lessons in there about pursuing big goals and perhaps forgetting to actually see what's right around you that's already fulfilling to you. So I wrote
Mm.
a newsletter post this week about that. So I love to look for connections like that.
You've inspired me. I have to confess something, which is that sometimes, I might watch a movie or TV show purely for fun, but then there's other times where I'll think, I want to watch a TV show or a movie to learn something. I want to get something from this.
Mhm.
And I think I had that mindset when I saw Soul pop up the other day as a possibility. And I
Mhm.
wrote it off. I don't know why exactly. I think I was thinking, oh, this is for kids. And I really regret doing that now that I heard you say that.
Well, my thinking watching it and with my kids and looking at their reactions, they were engaged, but not like other movies. So
Yeah.
for me, Pixar Soul is it's almost more of a movie for adults that kids will enjoy too, versus the other way
Mm,
around.
really interesting. Really
Something else
interesting.
we talk about in coaching a lot, I think, is the imposter syndrome, right? This belief a lot of us have that we're not good enough, the negative self-talk. And without going into detail, Soul illustrates that in a beautiful but eerie way,
Mm,
what that imposter
mm.
syndrome actually looks like. So I found that really interesting as well.
Between now and when we next speak, I'm going to watch it and we'll chat.
Good.
Cool. Awesome. All of this is fantastic. I'm curious to learn who are the types of people that you like to work with? I know you've talked about CEOs and other executives here. Curious to learn more about, first of all, whether you work with other folks, but also who are the people you work with in terms of their personality? Who do you really, what kinds of people do you really like to work with?
Yeah. I like to work with people who are committed to learning.
Mm,
And to be honest, I don't know that people who aren't committed to learning are good coaching clients for anybody, right? If someone isn't willing to be vulnerable and be honest about where they have gaps and be committed to growing, then I think it's incredibly difficult for a coach to support them. I suppose the thing you have to do there as a coach is actually help them understand and see that.
Mhm.
And if you can, perhaps you can unlock a transformation where now they're really open to growing. So people that are committed to learning, I love that. I love people who are curious. I love people who don't maybe take themselves so seriously. You know, one saying I like is don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. And that doesn't mean be laissez-faire and don't work hard and don't care and don't have goals,
Yeah.
but to just have some fun along the way and don't take yourself so seriously. So I really appreciate that attitude.
And in so many ways, the more sort of power we have, or the fancier our title, the easier it is to take ourselves seriously, because the rest of the world is making us feel like we're all that. And so we can lose touch with our humanity.
Yeah. What comes to mind a few days ago, maybe it was yesterday, Elon Musk overtook Jeff Bezos as the richest person on the planet,
Hmm.
by looking at wealth. And his response on Twitter was, "How strange. Oh well, back to work." And I really like that about him. It's not about the status and all that. It's just how strange. I'm not taking that so seriously. Back to work. I'm going to do what fulfills me.
It's a thing that happened.
Yeah, how strange.
Love that. As we start to close out, just a couple more questions, Colin. I'm curious, what are your goals for this coming year? We're just starting a new year here, and it sounds like, you've coached some fantastic people, helped achieve some fantastic results for them. What do you want to achieve with your practice, with yourself? Like, what are some big goals for 2021 for you?
Yeah, for me personally, I did work on understanding my purpose years ago. And by that, I say probably 20 years ago.
Hmm.
And I came up with three things: build a strong future for my family, help other people grow, and have fun. And I've never felt compelled to change that. That's been my North Star for 20 years. So this year it's continuing along that journey and doing those things. So building a strong future for my family. I used to think narrowly with that about money, about acquiring assets so that the kids had a comfortable life. And someone much wiser than me said, "Colin, that's a ridiculous vision, because your kids are going to be spoiled and they're not going to have great values and they're not going to have ownership and accountability if you just give them what they want." So my definition of building a strong future for my family has grown into helping equip the kids with great values, great interpersonal skills, a sense of giving back. So I've got work to do this year. Obviously, with I've got three boys, 8, 10, and 13 years old, and they're
Hmm.
lovely, and I love spending time with them. But focusing on them, in my corporate role, I was COO at Demonware, owned by Activision, and
Hmm.
Activision publishes Call of Duty. It's a behemoth video game. Demonware did the online services. And when I led Demonware, I was leading 200 people across Dublin, Vancouver, Shanghai. And I was on a long haul flight every 2 months for 7 years.
Hmm.
And I've not been able to be as physically present with my kids. So one of the things I love about this shift to coaching consulting and working from home, there's more freedom. I have my choices over how to spend time. So spending time with them is predominantly my goal for this year.
I love it. I love it. I love that you led with that before talking about anything else. I love that that was priority number one.
Yeah.
Is there sort of a goal or a new priority or something different about the business? Is there a desire to grow it, to do something differently, or is it perfect just as it is?
It is. I actually have. I absolutely have ambitions for the business, but I'm the tortoise, not the hare. I absolutely love what I do right now, and the things that I eventually want to get to, I want to be able to focus more on a niche. Right
Hmm.
now, I help with strategy. I help with leadership development, with productivity. I just finished a 3-month group coaching experience on exceptional customer service.
Hmm.
and I coach. And all of these things, they're very exciting and fulfilling to me, yet they require a lot of time and effort. So over time, I'm curious about finding that perfect intersection of what people really value, what I'm really good at, and what I love doing.
Hmm.
And I'm not really in a rush to figure that out. I'm starting to get involved a little bit more in investing. So
Hmm.
if I think long term, I mean, Naval Ravikant is someone I follow. I love everything that I hear from him. I believe, if you want real wealth, doesn't come from renting out your time. So not that wealth is the game, but if I'm able to find leverage in writing books, podcasts, what you're doing here, Dan, with this Fireside Strategic, with maybe building online courses so that I can have more reach with the value. That's something maybe I'd like to get to, but for now, I'm quite content with renting out my time.
Love it, love it, love it. And last question, we've talked mostly about businessy and coaching stuff today. When you're not working, if you're with your family or just doing something other than work, what's fun for Colin?
Yeah, I'm sort of a jack of all trades, master of none type of person. Very much a generalist. So things like I've got a Jeep and a Tesla.
Mm.
So we love the Tesla, we love the Jeep, we love going rock crawling in the Jeep on dry creek beds. I've been a 20-year snowboarder, just switched to skiing last year. So skiing with my kids in particular, my 8-year old is really fired up about skiing, so we're gonna go tomorrow. So those are the things I'm doing right now to spend time outside of the work.
Awesome, awesome. Well, when you are spending time at work, it sounds like you're making a fantastic contribution. Really enjoyed learning from you today and this conversation. I feel so calm, but also energized. I just had an absolute blast. So, such a pleasure chatting with you today, Colin.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Appreciate everyone who's listening. I hope you found something valuable in there.